Well, it's another installment of Halloween hijinks. If we can get rid of the dog. See, we'll bring up the pumpkin for Halloween. Go on, leave. I fed you. Go away. See, we're doing with that fucking daylight savings time shit that changed, and the dogs are all fucked up, but they just ate anyway. So, being that it's Halloween, I think I'll have a little pumpkin spice to start the festivities off. Of course, when you see this, you'll know that my lighter's a piece of shit. I don't believe it. Oh, well, no pumpkin spice. But anyway, you're probably going to see this after Halloween because we're way off schedule, but we don't really have a schedule. So I thought for films 31 through 35, how about some hardcore gore and violence with our perennial double bill that played on 42nd Street. The great double bill of Make Them Die Slowly and Demonoid. We can move these in here, and of course, Make Them Die Slowly is at the top here. It's called Cannibal Ferox was the real name. And weirdly enough, that the director, Umberto Lenzi, didn't even know that his film was playing on 42nd Street as Make Them Die Slowly. This double bill started in 1983. I forget the exact month, but it ran for 10 straight weeks. Demonoid was taken out for a week and replaced with The Love Butcher, but I guess the fans wanted Demonoid to come back because there was repeat viewers on this double bill. Sometimes it was standing room only on a weekend. Demonoid is a weird film shot in Mexico, shot by a Mexican guy, some of it in Mexico, I think, but most of it in California, where it opens up with this woman being, well, you don't know she's a woman. It's a monk being chased by some other monks, and then they catch up with her and tear her clothes off. And, of course, you get the first and last titty scene of the movie. And they tie her up, chop her hand off, bury her hand in a little special coffin, and she dies. Okay. So now we come to the present day with Samantha Eggar, and Roy Jensen, for some reason, was cast. And this is some archaeologist or some shit like that. And they're going down in the mine, and they dig up this, hand coffin, and they're bemoaning this whole thing in their bedroom. And for whatever reason, Roy dumps the stuff out. And it becomes a creepy crawling hand, which, gets up into, get the fuck out of here, gets up into his wife's leg, and then he grabs it, it grabs him, and he dies. And it gets more contrived because the hand possesses him. They bury him. Actually, no, I'm losing it here. He goes to Vegas and gets on a hot streak, and these two hustlers kidnap him. And he kills both of them and sets himself on fire to rid himself of the hand, dives out a window, and is buried. Well, he digs himself out of the grave, and he attacks a cop and possesses the cop, and the cop shoots him. Now, the whole deal is that the hand wants Samantha Eggar, the wife, and she enlists a priest, Stuart Whitman, who, for some strange reason, found himself doing a lot of B-horror toward the latter part of his career. He was in this, and Ruby, and Eaten Alive, and a bunch of other stuff. So he gets involved in it, and it's just really weird because they go to the doctor. The woman who was playing the nurse was actually playing the bare-titted woman in the beginning. So she gets killed. The doctor has to cut the cop's hand off. He gets possessed. The priest gets possessed. Eventually they get rid of the hand, and there was enough blood and gore to satisfy the crowd, but the crown jewel would be Make Them Die Slowly, where as we watch the screen, a disclaimer rolled across it saying that we would see over 30-something acts of barbaric cruelty and torture, and this was banned in 30-some-odd countries. For those of us who were pretty stoned and couldn't read the screen, a soft female voice read the thing for us. So it starts off in New York with two hitmen in a drug dealer's apartment, find a junkie there, they shoot him for whatever fucking reason. And then it switches to his anthropological students that go down to South America to see if to disprove the myth of cannibalism. And of course, we get the requisite animal cruelty, which is in all these cannibal films. They see a native eating a grub. I guess the first act is somebody eating a fucking moth or something like that on a boat, and it's a harbinger of things to come. And then they hand one of the female characters, Lorena de Saul character, this monkey, which eventually gets eaten by a crusty-looking anaconda, and they said that was an accident. Bullshit. But anyway, they run into Mike and Joe, who are the two drug dealers on the lam from New York, who have basically just castrated and mutilated a native guy to get some rubies. Mike, played by Giovanni Ribisi, a.k.a. John Morgan, is a coke fiend, and he's all hopped up on coke, which encourages one of the girls, played by Zora Kurvoff, to get involved with him. Well, anyway, the whole thing turns out that they feed the anthropological people a bullshit story about how they were attacked by the natives, but the whole thing was that they basically fucked up a bunch of natives and killed the one guy and left the remains on a pole. But they go to the village because Joe is sick, and the natives are very scared. Well, that's when the truth comes out, when Joe dies, and then the natives show up and they drag Joe outside and disembowel him and use liver and heart in a wonderful scene. Anyway, Pat, the Zora Kurvoff's character, and Mike had taken off with all the supplies and are rousted back by the natives, and they're all forced into this sort of like prison pit. The brother of one of them takes off and is hiding out very cleverly in a pool of piranhas, which start to eat his legs, and then he basically gets out of there and mouths "kill me," and they shoot him with a poison dart. He goes easy. They take everybody back to this camp, and they place the two girls in this mud hut, and they put Mike in this thing in the river with leeches and shit like that. Of course, these two girls are singing Red River Valley for some reason, which had the whole fucking crowd cracking up in the movie theater. Mike escapes, and he's captured, and as punishment, they chop off his hand. The payoff scene is they take Pat out of her thing, tear her top off, and put these two huge a sympathetic native helps the other girl get away, but he's impaled on a bunch of fucking spikes too. So she gets down into New York and does her dissertation of the cannibal thing, and basically she's pretty much deadpan when she's doing this whole thing, I guess as the effect of whatever was going on. Thing is, with the restored version from Grindhouse releasing, you get to see it all, but when we saw it, you saw it, but it was real quick. This one's more lengthy. A lot of the stuff was like really quick cuts, and I keep saying, and the truth is, a lot of these films were edited before they got to DVD. That's why when people bring up certain scenes, I can honestly say it wasn't in the version I saw in the movies because it was edited out for either, to get an R rating or for a time constraint, either one. But anyway, Make Them Die Slowly, like I said, ran 10 straight weeks, was brought back for 3 more weeks, teamed up with Savage Man, Savage Beast, and I think it was brought back one other time before it wound up on Thriller Video, home video, and that big box. Anyway, sticking with the cannibal stuff, another wonderful film by Umberto Lenzi was Eaten Alive. Wasn't that like a Bee Gees song at one point? Eaten Alive, uh-oh. Fuck it, well, anyway. This film, weirdly enough, I can hold that up to the camera there, it's Severin release. Anyway, this film was also released as Doomed to Die, which, these little title changes would suck everybody back in to see the same movie they saw before because they'd have a different ad campaign and different posters. Anyway, what Lenzi did with this one, and again, this starred Robert Kerman and Mimi Ling again, and porn star Paula Senatori and Ivan Razanov. They used the Jim Jones angle on that Ivan Razanov has a cult down in Cannibal Land, and nobody will escape from his cult because they'll get fucking eaten by cannibals. So he's also having people assassinated in New York that pissed him off. And of course, the sister of Paula Centauri, she was played by, okay, I'm losing my fucking mind here. Who played? Janet Agram. She's the sister that has to go down and find Paula Centauri. And of course, you know, they all go down there. And what happens is there's only a couple new cannibal scenes added. And what Lindsay did was he took footage from his own film, Deep River Savages, and from Rogerio Deodato's film, Last Cannibal World, a.k.a. Last Survivor, a.k.a. Jungle Holocaust, a.k.a. Carnivorous. They got their fucking mileage out of that one, too, at the grindhouses. But he took certain scenes and put them in this movie, and the only, like, really new scene is a couple decapitations of every... And Paula Centauri and Mimi Ling get eaten, but they did the whole stick. See, and Lindsay came up with this whole thing about sticking hands and legs in ground and then pouring bloody meat all over them, and then they look like they've been, you know, chopped up and shit. So it's pretty much of a patchwork, and like I said, they ran it once as Eaten Alive, then about a year or so later, brought it back as Doomed to Die, so we got sucked in again. Of course, our wonderful drive-in double feature, I Drink Your Skin and I Eat Your Blood. I mean, I drink your blood and I eat your skin, and actually no skin is eaten. This was distributed by Jerry Gross, who basically did this to the MPAA, but on this one it backfired on him because this was pre-sold to a lot of theaters, you know, on its initial release. I think it was like 130 fucking theaters or something like that. And the MPAA slapped an X on it, so he couldn't like pull the prints back and do anything. So he basically told them to, you know, edit it to your local standards, which is why until Grindhouse Releasing got it, there was not one intact print. Everything was missing shit. It's basically, it's called a Night of the Living Dead ripoff, and it's sort of close, but it's just this bunch of Manson-esque hippies that wind up in this deserted town and basically give this old veterinarian some LSD. And his grandson gets really pissed off and shoots a rabid dog and takes the rabid blood and injects it into meat pies and gives it to the hippies to eat, which basically turns them fucking rabid. They're killing each other. One of the hippie girls... So basically the whole town is, you know, overrun by these people that are basically fucking foaming at the mouth. There's decapitations, swords get run through. Somebody sets themselves on fire. Eventually, the sheriff and his men just blow everybody away. And that, like I said, that was, you know, it's like a classic type thing. Like I said, Something Weird Video would put it out, and using the print that they had, which was pretty beat up. And, you know, it's been released in different formats, but like I said, the Grindhouse Releasing one is the one you want. One of the forerunners of some really weird gore is this black and white classic, The Flesh Eaters. I believe this was out in, when the hell was it? Maybe 63, 64, whatever. But anyway, this was one that came and went real quick. It played down in a real bad area by me, but actually got the cover treatment on Famous Monsters of Filmland. And that made us want to see it, but that was pretty much close to where, you know, the Newark riots occurred, and that was the only place it was playing. And it made its run, it disappeared. Interestingly, it wound up on late night TV with all the gore footage taken out of it. Even the part where there's a part where somebody ingests the flesh eaters, they cut the sound because he was screaming. It was available on several bootlegger DVDs, always saying it was uncut, but it was always missing something. The way it goes is this... Nazis had these creatures that they were going to basically dump in our waterways during World War II, but the submarine that had them, you know, tanked off the coast, and this scientist played by Martin Koslick, who always plays weird Nazi German scientists, and I think he played Goebbels like 3 times. Anyway, he's staked out on this island waiting for these things to show up so he can corral them and sell them to the highest bidders during warfare. But this charter plane with this washed-up alcoholic actress, her secretary, and this pilot crash land on the island during a storm. Then they find a skeleton washed up on the beach, which the scientist goes, it was sharks, but, you know, sharks just don't eat a whole person and poop out a fucking skeleton. So they know there's something weird going on here. So all of a sudden these things show up, and of course the drunken actress makes the plane disappear because she unties it when she goes to get her booze out of the thing. She's trying to get her suitcase when these things are like swimming around in the water, and one splashes on the pilot's leg, and they do this thing. And I swear, I think the effect was made by burning the film with hot pins, because it looks like when you burn some, celluloid piece of footage, and there's like a little squiggly thing. Well, they put that on there, and they do it pretty well because it leaves blood pouring all over the place, and they pry it off. Well, then they realize what this whole thing is, and this beatnik shows up on the raft, and these damn things are like eating their way through it. So they try to figure something out, and the mad scientist decides to electrocute him. Well, okay, they all sink to the bottom of the bowl, and that's the idea. He has this big battery on the island that they can electrocute him with, some solar battery or something. But what he doesn't tell them is they're just stunned it's in submission, so he can corral them and put them in cans and sell them to whoever he wants to sell them to. But this thing sort of, after the electricity hits it, it morphs into one solid creature which eats the parrot that's in the tent. Go figure. While this was, while they were doing this, they were trying to lay out the thing. He invites the beatnik Omar back to have a drink, and then puts the things in him. And these things are like eating their way out. And there's this one scene, he screams, "There's something inside me eating its way out!" And the camera pans down, and his guts explode, and gore goes all over the place. That was the scene that was cut. He puts him on a raft and sends him out with a tape recorder. So he tape recorded his screams, and they think he's being eaten because he's trying to escape. This is a first now, because they use this in Cannibal Apocalypse, where you can see through the hole in the guy's body and you see the waves lapping up and down. That was a first. So one girl goes back to the tent and sees this creature getting out, and she tells them don't do it, and they throw the things in her and it flips, and she goes, "You don't know what you've done." And then they go back and they see this thing scuttling around trying to kill him. But before that happened, the mad scientist seduced the actress and basically fucking killed her. But she didn't die. She comes up attacking him with this knife, and he basically empties the gun into her. She rolls down the hill. Her bloody hand with the knife sticks into this thing's eye, and the thing explodes because it's hemoglobin sensitivity, they said. Okay, right. So they decide to do this whole thing, and the scientist pulls the gun, and he goes, "There's no way back that I'm going to stand trial for a bunch of murders." So him and the pilot have it out on the beach, and he gets flipped into the water and comes out covered with these fucking things. And this is probably the goriest fucking scene in the movie, that they basically are eating him down to like nothing. And you see his skeletal hand reach out and grab the gun he dropped and shoot himself through the head. Well, our intrepid pilot goes in and attacks the creature and eventually shoves the thing into its eye, and bang, it's done and it's over. It is a cool little film. Editing was done by Radley Metzger, who did a lot of erotic stuff for Audubon in the late 60s and early 70s. A really solid film, really well shot, and never got the attention it deserves, so I can highly recommend The Flesh Eaters. So that's film number 35. We will continue shortly with films number 36 through 40. So we'll be back for that. Happy Halloween. All right, we're back with another Halloween countdown. Films 36 to 40 with this cheap dollar store piece of shit I got here. We'll get better props some way down the road. Why not a perennial favorite for film 36? House on Haunted Hill. Now, how many people my age, a couple of years either way, didn't get living shit scared out of them by watching this William Castle classic with Vincent Price? The bit when that fucking witch came through the closet and stuff like that. Oh man, and the severed head and all this other stuff, and Elijah Cook Jr. I mean, how cool was this? I mean, do I really have to give you the whole skinny of this? This thing ran on $1 Million Movie for a straight week, and it was like I said, I think I said it in a previous show, when you couldn't take too much, you turned it off and you just picked it up the next night. Because we didn't have video then, but Price excels. The film is atmospheric, creepy, and still holds up today. One that pretty much ain't going to hold up today is what was supposedly the sequel to Lugosi's The Ape Man, Return of the Ape Man, which basically has them thawing out a caveman who was supposed to be George Zucco, but is played by boxer Frank Morgan. Zucco gets credit for it. I don't know what the deal was. They must have paid him, but he still got the film credit. So they dig up this ape man. Of course, Lugosi decides to transplant Carradine's brain into the ape man. And this thing is like going on, you know, a killing spree, whatever. But it's kind of funny because I remember in one scene he's climbing through a window and you can see part of his boxer shorts hanging out from under his costume. So on a repeat viewing, I mean, it's great for nostalgia. Lugosi's always fun to watch. And Carradine's very brief and serious this time. But I don't know, really doesn't hold up that well. But like I said, still a little bit fun to watch. Can't say that much for the remake of a classic, The Wolfman. I know Benicio del Toro was a big fan of the Universal's monster films in interviews I've seen with him. And he really gets the Lon Chaney thing down to a certain point. But, you know, the whole shock treatment with the fucking ice just fucking unnerved me for some reason because it was fucking cruel and shit like that. And the fact that, you know, okay, we had a lot of gore, we had a lot of blood, we had a lot of violence, but two fucking battling wolfmen at the end. Anthony Hopkins is a wolfman. I mean, basically, you just shit on a fucking classic, and I'm sorry I fucking wasted my money buying that piece of shit. So, let's go back to another real classic. The Monster of Piedras Blancas, a.k.a. the movie that broke my nose. If you didn't read this in Grindhouse Purgatory, I'll tell you what happened. This thing is really some hardcore shit because they built this monster out of part of the creature from the Black Lagoon suit, part of the Mole People outfits, and part of the Metaluna mutant. And then they made this nice fucking head for it. I mean, this thing is scarier than shit. What happened was, it ran on Chiller Theater. And the story is, it's like this thing that lived in the caves down there, and this old fisherman was feeding him meat scraps, and because he was lonely and shit. But then this thing, all of a sudden, he couldn't get the meat scraps, and this thing decided to wander into town and rip the heads off quite a few people. So, actually, there's one scene where it did kill a little girl, and the father is walking up the street holding the body, which pretty much was a no-no back then, but that broke that taboo. And the one scene that basically, the one that fucked me up and broke my nose was that this thing comes out of a fucking freezer roaring with a severed fucking bloody head in its hands. Well, I jumped up to turn off the TV and tripped over something and hit the fucking TV at the bridge of my nose and shattered my fucking nose and wound up in the ER. But that's the side story of that fucking thing. You know, the monster, basically, they try to get it. It kills a couple people. Jeannie Carmen's the star, and Don Sullivan. Don Sullivan, you remember from the Giant Gila Monster. This thing's after Jeannie Carmen, chases her up on top of the lighthouse, throws her crazy father to his death, who was the one who was feeding them. And basically, it's light sensitive, so they turn on the light thing, and Don Sullivan smacks the fucking thing, and it goes flying off into the rocks and stuff. I had met Jeannie Carmen at a Chiller Theater, the one and only time she was there, and let me tell you something. She was one tough broad, and we were talking, and she was telling me about, you know, Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedys, and this and that and the other thing. I just wish I had more time had more time at that show to sit down with her. She actually asked me to pose for a picture with her in my gimmick, and I lost touch with her and never got to see a copy of that, but I would love to have it because she was still pretty cool back then. Our last film, going up to 40, is Night of the Cobra Woman, another Filipino classic with Vic Diaz in a tour de force dual role as a Japanese soldier and a mutant hunchback. This one has Marlene Clark doing something with cobras. There's a curse of some kind, if I remember. Weird thing is, this film was cut down. It's only like 73 minutes. I remember there was an interview with her that she said there was a scene with a bunch of her and I wonder if that was edited out. But I got a real phobia against snakes anyway, so I'm not too cool with this shit. So anyway, that was our last film, Night of the Cobra Woman. So until next time, stay safe. Thanks for tuning in.